My name is Brooke Miller. I'm 31 years old. Last Christmas, I was in the kitchen icing cookies, humming along to carols. When I opened the window for some fresh air, I heard my mom and little sister calmly discussing such terrifying things that still makes my hands shake when I think about it. Before I tell you what exactly I heard, let me know in the comments where you are watching from. And don't forget to hit like and subscribe because you won't believe what happened next. When people ask why I live back near Denver, I usually say the soft version. My mom had a stroke, so I came home. But truth is rougher. 3 years ago, I was in Austin, running a small carpentry and restoration business. I fixed porches, doors, shelves, and tables. I was finally building something that was mine. Then my mom, Linda Miller, had her stroke. She called me crying, her voice slurred, saying the stairs scared her and she couldn't manage the house alone. My little sister Amber was busy with her own family. Mom reminded me when I was independent and flexible. So I paused my bookings, packed my tools in the truck, and drove back to Colorado, telling myself it was temporary. Underneath the duty, there was another reason. Years earlier, before he disappeared, my father Robert sat with me on the back steps of this same house. He smelled like coffee and fresh cut wood and told me that if I helped fix up the place, really put my back and my money into it, he'd make sure I had a share. Brick for brick, Brooke, he said. You help build it, it'll be yours too one day. A few months later, he was gone. No funeral, no explanation, just absence that has lasted more than 10 years. But his promise stayed. So when I came back after Mom's stroke, I didn't just cook and drive her to rehab. I went to war with this house. Weekends, evenings, holidays, if I wasn't doing a small freelance job online, I was in work boots. I rebuilt the deck, reinforced the stairs, refinished the floors, replaced cabinets, rewired old fixtures, sealed windows that leaked every winter. If something sagged, creaked, or peeled, I took it apart and made it better. Later, curiosity turned into a late-night calculation at the kitchen table. Lumber, hardware, fixtures, permits, lost income from jobs I'd turned down in Austin. The total on the calculator made my stomach drop, roughly $72,300. $72,300 of my own savings and my Austin emergency fund poured into Mom's house on the unspoken belief that I was investing, not donating. That belief is why one December afternoon still feels like a slap. I was preparing for our family Christmas party, frosting cookies and checking how the new dining room light I'd installed looked. The house smelled like cinnamon, and I was hot from the oven. So I wiped my hands and pushed open the kitchen window for a breath of icy air. Voices drifted up from the backyard, my mom's and my sister Amber's. I almost called out a hello, but Mom's tone made me stop. It had that tight, business-like edge. Once the house is in your name, we can start easing Brooke out, she said calmly. Do it before the end of the year. Keep it simple. I froze, fingers on the windowsill. Amber's voice followed, lighter but tense. You really think she'll just go? She acts like all these projects make her some kind of partner. Mom snorted. She's been living here for free, Amber. Those weekends with the power tools? Free repairs. A convenient hobby with tools. She gets to play carpenter. We get everything fixed. She should be thanking us. Free repairs? Convenient hobby? I stared around the kitchen at the cabinets I'd hung, the trim I'd cut, the window frame I'd sanded. My throat tightened. Amber hesitated. Tyler says the stuff she's done would cost a fortune if we hired someone. Are you sure putting the house only in my name is fair? It's practical, Mom replied. You and Tyler are building a real family. You need stability. Brooke will land on her feet somewhere else. We'll just gently push her out once the paperwork's done. Less drama that way. I clung to the edge of the sink, listening as they discussed my future like I was a piece of furniture they needed to move out. 3 years of weekends, $72,300, my father's old promise, and to them, I was just free labor with a convenient hobby and tools. If Mom and Amber could talk about pushing me out once, they'd talked about it before. Maybe I just hadn't wanted to hear it. Despite everything, I clung to the nicer story. Maybe I misheard. Maybe pushing me out meant encouraging me to be independent. But the more I replayed every word, the more something clicked into place. So I did what any carpenter does when she suspects rot behind fresh paint. I started looking closer. I began documenting everything. Every time I paid for materials, I laid the receipt flat and took a photo. If I wrote a check for Mom's rehab copay, I snapped it before handing it over. I saved bank transfers, texts where she wrote, "We'll settle it when we do the papers, honey. You know I'll take care of you." Dates, sums, screenshots. My phone stopped being just before and after photos and turned into an archive. On the surface, nothing changed. In public, Mom still called me her golden girl. At church or in front of neighbors, she'd grip my arm and say, "Brooke gave up everything in Texas to come home and care for her poor mother. She's an angel." But once the door closed, the script flipped. Angel became, "You're lucky you don't have real responsibilities like Amber." My carpentry and restoration work, the business I'd scraped together in Austin job by job, became your little hobby with wood compared to Amber's husband's real profession as an accountant. "Tyler has a proper career," she'd say, tapping a bill. "He has a salary, benefits. You just do projects." It's not the same. It was the same when money came up. Amber, according to Mom, was building a real family and deserved stability. She had a husband, a mortgage, a baby registry, while I only had calluses and a pickup. So when the rehab clinic extended her sessions and insurance didn't cover everything, the solution was obvious to her. "You know I wouldn't ask if I had a choice," she'd sigh, pushing the invoice toward me. "Can you cover this month? Think of it as another brick in your future share." Rehab turned into a healing vacation because Mom's nerves are shot. Then into a down payment on a newer car because the old one makes her feel disabled. And each time, the same promise. "You pay now, and when we do the paperwork for the house, we'll make sure you're taken care of." Family first. Family first, as long as family meant me paying and everyone else promising. For years I'd swallowed it. But after that evening at the window, something in my brain shifted from fog to numbers. I scrolled through old messages at night, noticing how often she wrote, "Help, sacrifice, later," but almost never a concrete share. I saw the pattern: public praise, private erosion. At Thanksgiving, she raised a glass to my Brooke, who's basically rebuilt this house with her own 2 hands. Everyone clapped, and I felt my throat tighten with embarrassment. But the next morning, when I mentioned a potential restoration job back in Austin, she didn't look up from her phone. "Brooke, stop chasing fantasies," she stated. "You're not 19. Be realistic. Amber and Tyler are building something real. You're just helping your relatives. That's what good daughters do. Helping? Just helping. Not building, not earning, not partnering. Helping." And that was the moment the last piece slid into place. All the sweet words, the speeches about "someday this will all be yours," weren't pure love. They were bait. Promises offered up front for labor and money she expected to keep drawing from me indefinitely. She hadn't just grown used to my sacrifices. She'd started to treat them as her right. 3 days before the party, I'd been patching a crack in the dining room wall while Mom complained that the TV playlists were too gloomy. My phone was dead, the Bluetooth speaker refused to connect, so she shoved her tablet toward me. "Here," she said. "Find something cheerful." I woke the tablet. Her home screen was a mess of apps and folders. I aimed for Spotify. Instead, my thumb slipped and opened a blue banking app. I was about to close it when the account name at the top punched the breath out of me. Emergency Fund, Brooke. For a second, I thought it had to be a coincidence. Then I saw the balance. $12.47. The last time I'd checked, that fund was around $12,000. It was the cushion that let me leave Austin and move back in with Mom after her stroke, the money I swore I'd never drain. My finger hovered as I scrolled. Transfers. Emergency Fund, Brooke to Linda Miller CC02. Clothing stores. Online boutiques. A retreat and spa. A resort in Sedona. One large payment labeled card payoff. Use EF. I wasn't just patching walls. I'd quietly patched my mother's debt. "Mom," I said, eyes still on the screen, "why is my emergency fund empty?" She didn't look up. "Oh, that. I had to borrow while I was dealing with bills and the car. You know I'll make it right when we sort the house, Brooke. Don't start a scene." I noticed a small folder icon at the top labeled Docs. So I tapped. A list of file names appeared: House Transfer, Gift Agreement, Brooke Waiver Signed. Another folder called Carter Correspondence. My heart banged in my ears when I opened Gift Agreement. On the screen, Gift Agreement between Linda Miller, donor, and Amber Hayes and Tyler Hayes, recipients. The document described the residential property located at our address, including all improvements and fixtures being transferred to them as a gift. Farther down, a paragraph about prior contributions by family members. My name sat in the middle of it. Brooke Miller, voluntary family gifts in the form of repairs, renovations, and general household assistance, non-monetary, no reimbursement expected. Declared value, $0. Zero? Officially, my work and money were worth $0. I backed out and tapped Brooke Waiver Signed file. The heading read, Waiver of Rights and Future Claims. It said that I, Brooke Miller, freely and voluntarily relinquish any present or future claim to ownership, reimbursement, or other interest in the property, having already received adequate benefits as a resident and family member. The date at the bottom was from 6 months ago. Under it was a neat, looping signature. My signature. Except I had never seen this document. Something about the lines was wrong, too smooth, too carefully traced, like someone had copied my name from another form and pasted it here. Mom, I said slowly, when did I sign this waiver? She sighed. Brooke, you're always so suspicious. You sign things all the time. Bank stuff, insurance, rehab papers. Miss Carter said we needed some waivers for the title work. If I showed you every page, we'd be here until New Year's. Have some faith. Faith? When my consent looked like a forgery. My fingers were shaking, but I opened the folder marked Carter Correspondence. The first PDF was a screenshot of an email from Mom to our family lawyer. Once the deed is fully in Amber and Tyler's names, we can quietly begin discussions with the developer, she'd written. Brooke is under the impression her work gives her a share, but as we clarified, her contributions are voluntary and non-compensable. It is important she does not learn about the transfer until after the holidays to avoid emotional upset. Our lawyer's reply confirmed that the gift agreement structure was sound, reminded Mom to retain all signed waivers, and suggested a timeline for recording the new deed. Another email, from a week earlier, after re-registration, Brooke can be encouraged to pursue opportunities back in Austin. Framing this as time to build her own life may reduce resistance. At the bottom of the folder was a PDF from a real estate company I didn't recognize, outlining preliminary interest in acquiring the parcel once current occupants have been relocated, with numbers that made it clear why everyone was so eager to gently push me out. Relocated. Not thanked. Not compensated. Just relocated like an obstacle. I stood in front of the half-decorated tree, the blinking lights reflecting off the tablet screen, and finally saw the full picture. My emergency fund was their safety net. This wasn't misunderstanding or family tension. It was a clear plan. Mom didn't confront me the second I saw the files on her tablet. Instead, she waited and staged it. 2 nights later, she called from the dining room. Brooke, honey, can you come in here? We're having a family council. The table I'd refinished was dressed in a red cloth, good plates, candles. At one end sat a stack of folders and printed emails. Amber and Tyler were already there. Amber hunched over a mug, eyes red. Tyler sat straight, a manila folder in front of him. Mom stood at the head of the table with one hand on the chair back, the other on her chest. I'd seen this pose before. It meant performance mode. I wanted us to have an honest conversation before Christmas, she began. No secrets. No resentment. Just family. She looked straight at me. You've been difficult lately. And I know you've been going through my tablet. I'm not stupid, Brooke. So instead of sulking, let's put everything on the table. Great idea, I said. Do it. She folded her hands. First, everything you've done here, you did out of love. You came home when I had my stroke. You cooked, you cleaned, you fixed things. You were being a good daughter. Normal children don't demand a share for their help. That's not how family works. My jaw tightened. Normal mothers don't drain their daughter's emergency fund into their own credit card, I said. Normal mothers don't call 3 years of work, $0 and a gift agreement. Amber flinched. Mom's eyes flashed, then filled with tears. Forgive me for not understanding legal language, she said. You know I get overwhelmed. Miss Carter explained everything. You sign things all the time. Rehab forms, bank papers. You're making a drama out of nothing, Brooke. Again. Tyler slid smoothly into the space she left. Why don't we look at the legal reality, he said. There is no written contract giving you a share of this property. He tapped the top printout. Without a contract, your work is voluntary assistance. Gifts. Courts don't turn gifts into ownership. Amber straightened. Exactly, she stated. You've lived here for free for 3 years. No rent, no utilities. And you took over the whole garage with your tools. Tyler can't even park when we visit. It's not like you didn't get anything out of this. Mom nodded, adopting her reasonable voice. We're not attacking you. We're being practical, she said. Amber and Tyler are building a real family. There's a baby coming. They need stability. You're still young, you can go back to Austin, restart your business. This house in Amber's name is the sensible path. Sensible, I echoed. So I'm what? The unpaid contractor who should say thank you for the chance to rewire your kitchen. You're my daughter, she snapped, then softened. That's why this is so painful. What you did was priceless because it came from love. If you put a price tag on it now, you cheapen your own sacrifice. Tyler gave me his professional smile. Look, he said, sliding a page toward me, this is from state case law. In the absence of a written agreement, sweat equity by a family member does not create an ownership interest. This isn't us being cruel. It's the law. I even didn't touch the paper. It would be a shame if you threw money at a lawyer and wound up with nothing but bills, he went on. Judges hate messy family drama. And once lawyers get involved, they start examining everything. A chill ran down my spine. Everything like what? I asked. He shrugged. Permits. Zoning. Safety codes. You've done a lot of work on that garage workshop. Are all your permits perfectly in order? I'm sure they are, he added quickly. I'm saying inspectors can be picky. I know people at City Hall. If someone filed a complaint, they'd have to look. Could get inconvenient. There it was, the threat, wrapped in friendly concern. Mom gasped softly. Tyler, please, you're scaring her, she said, but she didn't say he was wrong. She just shifted tone. We're trying to protect you, Brooks. If you accept that you don't have a legal claim, we can help you move on. Maybe give you something to get started. But dragging your own family into court? That would destroy us. Amber wiped her eyes. We really love you, she whispered. We just need you to accept reality. This has always been Mom's house, and now it's going to be ours. It was never yours, Brooke. Not really. The message was simple. Shut up, leave quietly, and maybe we won't burn the rest of your life. I looked at my mother, who had turned my loyalty into leverage, at my sister, clutching her future, at the man smiling while he threatened my livelihood. Something inside me went still. For the first time since I'd moved back, I didn't feel like a guilty child at the table anymore. I felt like the only person in the room who understood that this family council wasn't a talk. It was a warning. Sitting alone in my room that night, my head still buzzing with Tyler's threats about permits and Mom's line about normal children, I opened my laptop and decided to do something I should have done years ago. Stop trusting everyone and start digging. I began with the oldest emails in my account, the ones I never deleted because they hurt too much to read, messages from my dad's side of the family, sent in those confusing months after he disappeared. Buried deep in a folder called Family/Old, I found a thread from Robert's father, my grandfather, Thomas. The subject line, about the house and your future, kiddo. I clicked it open, and there it was, in plain words I somehow hadn't fully understood when I was 20. Your father told me you're the only one actually fixing that place up, Grandpa had written. He asked me to put it in writing so there's no argument later. For every dollar of materials and structural work you put into the house, you'll be credited toward a 35% share in the property, on top of whatever personal belongings are yours. I will back this agreement financially if needed. Keep your receipts. Do the work. Don't let anyone tell you it's just helping. Love, your grandpa. Underneath was a terse reply from my dad, Robert, forwarded to me. I confirm this. Brooke's work and costs equal equity, 35%. This email stands as proof until we formalize it properly. I stared at those numbers until they blurred. 35%. Not vague promises, not "we'll see later," but an actual percentage spelled out, with my father and grandfather both backing it. They weren't perfect men, clearly, but in that moment they felt more solid and honest than anything I'd heard in that dining room table speech. I printed the emails and slid them into a plastic sleeve. And right around the time I began to quietly collect evidence, the strangeness around me went from annoying to strategic. Orders I'd lined up with my old Austin contacts, small custom pieces I could build in Mom's garage and ship out, started disappearing. Clients emailed apologies. "Hey Brooke, sorry for the confusion. Your mom said you're not taking on work right now and that the garage is being converted. We'll find someone local." What? Garage being converted? Then there were the reviews. My tiny business page, which had been quietly resting with a handful of glowing testimonials from Austin, suddenly got 3 new 1-star ratings in a week. All anonymous. All with the same weird tone. Unprofessional, emotionally unstable, made drama over simple repairs. No names. No real details. Just enough toxicity to make potential clients hesitate. In the workshop, little things started to go wrong. Tools weren't where I left them. A set of chisels I'd cleaned and lined up with almost obsessive precision turned up tossed in a drawer, tips knocked against each other. Measuring tapes disappeared and reappeared in weird places. At first, I told myself I was tired, absent-minded. But one afternoon, I came back from the store to find coffee soaking into the detailed drawings I'd left on the workbench, the plans for a custom bookcase order. The mug sat sideways, half full, like it had been accidentally knocked over. Amber's lipstick was on the rim. When I confronted her, she gasped and clutched her chest. "Oh my God, Brooke, I'm so sorry. I was just looking at your sketches. I must have bumped the mug." It made my teeth grind. That night I sat in my truck in the driveway and forced myself to say the quiet part out loud. Someone in the house was trying to make my work fail. That's when I bought the cameras. They were small, cheap, motion-activated things I ordered online and paid for in cash at a pickup point, just in case. I told myself it was overkill, that I'd feel stupid when they showed nothing. But the next morning, when Mom and Amber left to go baby shopping, I mounted one high on a shelf in the garage aimed at the bench, and another in the corner of the living room with a clear view of my laptop on the desk. Of course, I told nobody. The first few days, nothing major happened. Lots of boring footage, me sanding, me coughing, Mom walking through to ask if I could just quickly fix a drawer. Then, a week later, I hit play on an afternoon I remembered clearly, the day I'd left a stack of supplier checks on the corner of the bench, ready to mail. On the video, Amber strolled in alone, phone in hand. She looked around, then went straight to the checks. She didn't open them, didn't read them. She scooped the entire stack up in one movement, shoved them into her tote bag, and walked out, humming. No accident. No confusion. Just theft. On another clip, time-stamped 2 days after the family council, Mom came into the living room while I was out picking up a door. She glanced at the hallway, then sat at my laptop. She tried my birthday, my old Austin address, Amber's birthday. When my password didn't work, she pulled a scrap of paper from her robe pocket, one of the sticky notes I kept in a drawer, where I'd scribbled part of an old password scheme and tried combinations again and again, swearing under her breath. After 10 failed attempts, she slammed the lid shut, checked her reflection in the dark screen, and left. Watching it, something inside me went icy. Angry as I was, part of me still wanted to believe this was temporary madness, fear about money, panic about aging. Something fixable. Then I went hunting for sandpaper and found the box. It was shoved behind an old lawnmower and some broken Christmas decorations, a battered file box with one corner crushed, the lid barely hanging on. It didn't look remarkable. If anything, it looked like trash, which is probably why nobody thought I'd bother with it. So I dragged it into the light and flipped the lid open. Inside were neatly bundled envelopes, held together with rubber bands gone brittle with age. Some were marked with years: 2014, 2015, 2016. Others just said MH or insurance. I picked up the top stack and slid out the first letter. Dear Linda, it began. As agreed, I confirm receipt of $500 toward our arrangement. Please keep these slips for your records. If anyone asks, this has nothing to do with the house. It's about our old favor. Yours, Martin Hayes. Martin Hayes. I knew the name vaguely, the way kids know the names of people their parents mention as old friends. A guy who used to come by for barbecues when I was in high school. Some kind of consultant, according to Mom. I hadn't thought about him in years. I flipped through more slips. Regular payments: $200, $350, $700. All addressed to Martin. All signed by Mom. Some had the memo line blurred with whiteout. On one, she'd written over it, repairs. On the bottom of the box was a glossy brochure from an insurance company with a sticky note: policy update, ask Carter. Paperclipped to it was a printout of an email. Per your request, the agent had written, we have removed Brooke Miller as a contingent beneficiary and updated the policy to list Amber Hayes as the sole beneficiary, with Tyler Hayes as secondary. Effective date: last year. I sat down hard on an overturned bucket. Removed? Not reduced, not shared. Removed. I dug deeper until I found the full policy statement. Where my name had once been, there was a blank space, then Amber's, highlighted. On another note, in Mom's hurried scrawl, was a reminder: make sure Brooke doesn't see insurance letters. She doesn't need to worry about that stuff. So while I was killing myself to protect her from stairs and busted railings, while I emptied my savings and worked unpaid shifts as her private contractor, she'd quietly taken my name off the only formal safety net she had ever promised me. All while sending money for years to a man who, as far as I knew, didn't share her bed, her bloodline, or her address. I pressed my fingers to my temples, suddenly dizzy. The forged waiver. The drained emergency fund. The plan to sell the place to a developer. Now the rewritten insurance and regular payments to an old family friend. This wasn't just about my sweat and savings anymore. This was a whole hidden economy built on my ignorance and my loyalty, and maybe, just maybe, something my father had tried to protect me from before he walked away. Christmas at our house has always been atmospheric: matching pajamas, overloaded tree, Mom directing like a producer. But that year she added a new element: our lawyer. Brooke, Mom called, too bright, come help me set one more place. Miss Carter is joining us, so we can finally settle the inheritance issue. The word inheritance made my stomach knot, but I wiped my hands and went to the dining room. The table looked like a catalog spread: Red Runner, candles, the good crystal I'd reglazed. Amber and Tyler whispered on one side. At the head sat a woman in a dark blazer, reviewing papers. Brooke, you remember Miss Carter, Mom said. I did, vaguely. She'd handled wills and refinances for us since I was a teenager. She glanced up, frowned like she was scrolling through mental files, then her face lit. Oh, she said, her voice warming, of course I remember you. Brooke Miller. You redid my office a few years back, didn't you? Those floating shelves, the arch over the window? You refused to take a cent. That was you? I only knew you as Vanessa. Guilty, she said. I keep work and home separate. Mom's smile tightened. Well, she cut in, we're all very grateful to Brooke. Let's sit so we can handle the paperwork before the food gets cold. We filled our plates with food no one cared about. The TV on the wall was already connected to my laptop. Mom cleared her throat. As you know, she began, I asked Miss Carter here to make everything official. The house will be transferred into Amber and Tyler's names, and Brooke will be free to build her own life without feeling tied down here. No more misunderstandings. Tyler nodded. Amber stared at her plate. Miss Carter clicked her pen. We've discussed a possible structure, she said, but before I advise anyone to sign anything, I need to understand whether any other claims exist. Brooke, your mother says you're confused about your rights. Mom jumped in. She feels entitled to a piece of my house because she likes fixing things. But everything she did was out of love, not as an investment. Normal children don't demand a share for their help. Actually, I cut in. Picking up the remote, I put something together that might clear up the confusion. The TV replaced its fake fireplace with the first slide of my presentation, Miller Residence, Renovations and Investments 2019 to 2022. Mom's chair scraped. "Brooke, turn that off. You wanted honesty," I said. "This is honest." The first photos showed the house the week I came back from Austin: sagging porch, cracked steps, rotted railing, beside shots taken after each project. Below each pair, I'd listed dates and numbers. "Deck and stair reconstruction," I said. "Materials, $8,420. Labor, 172 hours. Paid with my card." I charged no labor because I believed I was buying into a share of this property. Click. Before and after of the living room floor, the kitchen cabinets, the new electrical panel. Floors, walls, fixtures, wiring. Each slide showed receipts, lumber yards, hardware stores, permit fees, all with my name. Rehab copays, healing trips, the down payment on your new car. All traced to my accounts. The final slide in that section was simple white text on black. Total direct financial investment, $72,300. The number glowed in the room's silence. "For 3 years," I said quietly, "I've poured $72,300 into this house and into you, Mom. Not only as gifts, as sweat equity." Miss Carter's brows rose. "Linda," she started, "you did not tell me the scale of Brooke's contributions." Mom made a strangled sound. "She's exaggerating," she snapped. "Half those receipts could be for her little projects. She lives here for free." "Actually," I said and clicked again. I separated categories. Blue is house materials. Green is your medical and travel expenses from my accounts. And yellow is from a specific source. The next slide was a screenshot of an old email, my grandfather Thomas's message, with my dad's reply beneath. I read it aloud. The promise of a 35% share for my work and materials. Miss Carter walked closer to the screen, then held out her hand. I passed her the printed copy. She read, lips moving silently, then looked up, her expression sharpened. "Were you aware of this written agreement, Linda?" Mom's jaw clenched. "Robert said a lot of things," she spat. "He walked out on us. I won't have my life dictated by some email he sent while he was drunk and feeling guilty." Before I could answer, another voice spoke from the doorway. "Funny," it said, calm and low. I remember being stone-cold sober when I wrote that. We all turned. My father stood there in a dark coat, snow melting on his shoulders, older and narrower, but unmistakably him. "Dad?" He gave a small, uncertain smile. "Hey, Brookie." Mom's chair toppled as she lurched up. "What are you doing here?" she hissed. "You don't live here. You don't get to just walk in." "I was invited," he said, holding up a printed email. "By Miss Carter. She thought the guy who funded certain accounts should be present for the inheritance issue. When Brooke sent me her documentation," Miss Carter said, "it became clear there were significant funds earmarked for her. I told Robert it would be irresponsible to proceed without his input." Dad stepped in, closed the door, and set a thick envelope in front of her. "These are statements from the trust account I opened for Brooke's house share," he said. "You'll see deposits from my business over several years. And then withdrawals authorized by Linda under a limited power of attorney that was supposed to be for medical emergencies only." He slid out another document. "And this is the application for a line of credit against that same fund, bearing Brooke's signature, which she never gave. The bank's fraud team confirmed it doesn't match her records." Mom had gone white. "I used that money to keep this family alive," she whispered. "For rehab. For bills. For your kids. You left me with nothing, Robert." "For Martin Hayes?" I asked quietly. "For those monthly checks?" Her head snapped toward me. Tyler's fork clinked. Amber stared at Mom like she'd never seen her before. "Linda," Miss Carter said, her voice flat, "between Brooke's documented expenses, this written 35% agreement, the misuse of a restricted trust, and a forged loan application, we are not dealing with a simple family misunderstanding anymore. These are issues a court, and potentially a prosecutor, would take seriously." Tears sprang to Mom's eyes. You're turning my own child against me, she asked hoarsely. Everything I did for this family. For Amber's future, maybe, I corrected. Miss Carter gathered the documents into a stack. Effective immediately, she said, looking at Mom, I will instruct the title company to halt any transfer of this property. No gift, no re-registration, nothing proceeds until this is resolved openly. If you attempt to move forward behind my back, I will withdraw as your counsel. She glanced at me, then at Dad. I'll need digital copies of everything you've shown me tonight. Brooke, don't delete a single email or receipt. Robert, I'll want full records from the bank. Then she turned back to my mother. I also have to advise you, Linda, she said, that forging your daughter's signature and diverting funds designated for her could expose you to civil liability and criminal charges. What happens next will depend a lot on what you do from this point on. The room was very quiet. Sitting there now, my slides glowing on the TV, my father's evidence spread across the table, and a lawyer finally saying the word forgery out loud, I felt the balance tilt. 2 days after the Christmas disaster, the house felt like it was holding its breath. Dad had gone back to his rented apartment with a promise to let Carter do her digging. The title transfer was frozen, the trust account flagged. For the first time, my mother couldn't move money or papers in the dark. I was in the kitchen making coffee when I heard the synchronized footsteps I'd learned to dread. Mom and Amber appeared in the doorway together. Brooke, Mom said, we need to talk. Just us. As women. As family. Tyler drifted in a second later, sleeves rolled up, pretending he'd just happened to be nearby. I kept stirring sugar into my mug. Sure, I said. What's up? Mom clasped her hands. I've had a few days to think, she began. I realize things look bad. Miss Carter overreacted. Your father loves making me the villain, and you're hurt. So I've come up with a compromise. Amber stepped forward. We want to keep everything in the family, she said. No lawyers, no court. Just us. Tyler laid a folder on the table and opened it, revealing a single typed page. Here's what Linda is offering, he said. We formalize a 10% share of the house in your name. That's more than the law requires, given there's no written contract. In exchange, you sign this waiver agreeing not to pursue any legal action about the trust, the house, or the alleged forgery. Everyone walks away whole. 10%. After a written promise of 35. After she drained my emergency fund and tried to erase me with fake papers. Mom's lower lip trembled. I'm bending over backward here, Brooke, she whispered. Normal mothers don't give away chunks of their home to ungrateful children. But I'm willing to, because I love you. I just can't survive a court battle. The stress would kill me. Amber twisted her ring. Please don't do this, she said. Think about Mom's health. Think about my baby. Tyler says court could drag on for years. Tyler cut in. Litigation is expensive, he added. Even with your evidence, nothing is guaranteed. And once subpoenas start flying, everything gets exposed, your taxes, your permits for the garage, those cash jobs. If City Hall decides your workshop isn't up to code, you could be looking at fines or a shutdown. I'm not threatening you, I'm giving you a realistic picture. The old me would have felt cornered. Guilty. Terrified. But the new me set my mug down, unlocked my phone, and tapped a folder labeled insurance. I appreciate how prepared you are, I stated. But I'm prepared too. I hit play. From my pocket, our voices filled the kitchen, tinny but clear. Mom and Amber on the patio weeks earlier, talking about gently pushing Brooke out once the house is in your name. Tyler at the dining table threatening to call in favors at City Hall if I made trouble. Mom laughing about my convenient hobby with tools and free repairs. Amber went rigid. Tyler's face flushed. Mom's mouth fell open. How she choked. I told you I document things now, I said. Receipts. Emails. Audio. And reviews. I swiped to screenshots of the anonymous 1-star reviews that had appeared on my business page. I zoomed in on the IP line at the bottom. These 3, I said, all came from the same address. Cross-check it with public records and guess what? It's your home router, Tyler. Funny coincidence for 3 different, angry customers. His mouth opened, then snapped shut. You can't prove I wrote those, he muttered. I don't have to, I replied. I just have to show a pattern of coordinated sabotage. Fake reviews, canceled orders, missing checks, forged signatures. Judges may not like messy family cases, but prosecutors love tidy fraud patterns. For a heartbeat, nobody moved. Then I smiled. Also, I won't be here long enough for you to worry about my permits. 3 pairs of eyes snapped to me. I signed a lease in Austin last week, I said. Workshop space off South Lamar, 3-year term. Yesterday, I signed a contract to restore the lobby and staircases of the Harrington Hotel. They wired my deposit this morning. My business is moving. I am not dependent on this address, this zip code, or these family councils anymore. Amber stared at me. So, you're leaving? Yes, I said. With or without a settlement. But how we leave things legally is up to you. Right on cue, Dad stepped into the doorway holding a thinner folder. None of them had heard him come in. Afternoon, he said. I figured this conversation was happening. Mom whirled on him. You had no right. He ignored her and set the folder on the table in front of me. I filed these with Carter this morning, he said. This is the deed transfer for my 50% interest in the house. It goes to Brooke exclusively. No conditions, no gifts, no tricks. He looked at Amber, then at Mom. Whatever else happens, half of this property now belongs to her. Tyler's composure cracked. You can't that's not fair market. It's my half, Dad stated. I can do what I want with it. And what I want is for the one person who actually held this place together to have leverage. He slid another document free, a stamped receipt. And this is the fraud complaint filed with the bank and the county. Unauthorized use of a restricted trust, forged loan application, potential identity theft. Carter has copies. So does the bank's legal department. The color drained from Tyler's face. His eyes flicked from the complaint to the screenshots on my phone to Amber's expression. I need to make some calls, he muttered, taking a step back. He removed Amber's hand from his arm as he did it. Tyler. Amber's voice cracked. He didn't look at her. Linda, I can't be connected to any of this, he said. I advised you based on what you told me. I had no idea about forged signatures or misused trusts. If this goes criminal, I have my own career to protect. There it was, self-preservation, tearing through the last of the united front. Mom made a choking noise. You coward, she hissed. For us, Amber whispered, but she was staring at him like she was seeing him for the first time too. I picked up the waiver they'd tried to offer me and folded it in half, then in half again, until it was a tight little square. And dropped it in the trash under the sink. Here's my compromise, I started. Carter mediates a legal settlement based on the actual numbers and my father's transfer. I take what the law says I'm owed, not what your guilt thinks I deserve. In return, I won't ask a judge to explore every payment to Martin Hayes and every policy you rewrote behind my back. I met Mom's eyes. That's as gentle as I'm willing to be. She had no script. No speech about normal children. No line about my golden heart. Just silence. I picked up my coffee, now lukewarm, and took a sip. It didn't taste like obligation. It tasted like an exit. The settlement, when it finally came together, Miss Carter handled the negotiations quietly. No more family councils, no more Tyler waving laws in my face. Just emails, draft agreements, and one final meeting where she did most of the talking while I sat with my hands laced so I didn't clench them. With Dad's 50% officially in my name and the paper trail of my investments laid out, Linda's leverage crumbled. On paper, the numbers looked stark: value of the property, value of my contributions, and the risk if we went to court and the trust misuse and forgeries were confirmed. Here is my professional recommendation, Carter said. Brooke receives a cash payout for her calculated share plus reimbursement of the trust funds, and she retains ownership rights to specific items she personally designed and built. In exchange, she agrees not to pursue criminal charges, for now. Dad, beside me, let out a breath. Linda stared at the table. Amber dabbed at eyes that weren't actually wet. I signed. Dad signed. Carter slid the papers toward my mother. If you refuse, she said quietly, we go to court. And given what I've seen, you will likely lose more than this. Mom's hand shook as she scrawled her name. When it was over, Carter gathered the pages. Legally, she said to me, you're free to move on. The settlement hit my business account a week later. Not a miracle, but enough. A payout for my share and every cent that should have been in my fund in the first place. More important to me was the clause Carter insisted on about personal creations. So I wasn't leaving my work behind. On a cold morning, my friend Nate pulled his truck into the driveway. He'd been my favorite supplier back in Austin, a guy who knew every species of wood by smell alone. He took in the house and let out a low whistle. "This the famous Miller Money Pit?" he asked. Money Pit," I said. "Help me get my heart out of it." We started in the living room. I ran my hand along the custom fireplace mantel one last time. "Ready?" Nate asked. "Yeah," I replied. We unscrewed the hidden brackets, eased the mantel free, and carried it out together like a coffin. In the truck bed it joined the built-in shelves from the study, the coffee table I'd made out of reclaimed beams, the dining table whose surface I'd inlaid with a compass rose. In the hallway, I took down the wall sconces I had welded and wired myself. In my old bedroom, I pulled up the platform bed frame, the headboard made from an old door Dad and I had salvaged years before. Each piece that left the house felt like reclaiming a fragment of myself. Mom watched from the kitchen doorway, arms crossed. "You're just gutting my home," she said. "No," I replied, wrapping a lamp cord. "I'm taking my work. The house is still here. You'll just have to live with its actual age for once." Amber hovered behind her, pale and silent. Tyler was at the office, suddenly too busy to get involved. By noon the garage was stripped to the essentials, my tools, my lumber, my hardware. The pegboard where everything had hung was bare, hooks like punctuation marks on a sentence that had finally ended. "When you rebuild in Austin, you'll do it better," Nate said. "I'm not rebuilding," I stated. "I'm starting fresh." We loaded the last box and slammed the tailgate. I took one final look at the house, its patched siding, its sagging corners that suddenly looked obvious without my custom pieces hiding the flaws. Without my weekends and my convenient hobby with tools, the place looked tired. "Honest. You'll need a new roof in a couple of years," I said quietly. "Foundation's still shifting." Mom flinched, but I wasn't trying to be cruel. Dad followed us in his car for the first leg of the drive south. At a gas station outside Pueblo, we sat on the curb with coffees and a legal pad while he walked me through budgets and timelines. "Maybe I'm good with my hands," I said. "But not so much with this part." "You're better at it than you think," he replied. "You just never had someone in your corner when numbers came up." "That changes now." He started looking at rentals near Austin that week. By the time I signed the lease for my workshop, Miller Heritage Restorations, in block letters across the form, he'd found a small house outside the city. Not with me, not entangled, but close enough to show up, to carry lumber, to be a father in ordinary ways we'd both missed. Back in Denver, according to Carter's updates, things went less smoothly. Without my free labor, the house showed its true condition. A pipe burst that first March. The roofer's quote made Mom sputter. Probate and tax questions tangled with the frozen sale to the developer. Linda and Amber still had a house. They just no longer had a cushion made of my unpaid time and unquestioning loyalty. In Austin, my life narrowed into something solid. The Harrington Hotel project took over my mornings. In the afternoons, I designed custom pieces, mantels, tables, shelves for clients who paid deposits up front and signed clear contracts. Word spread, helped along by Nate's contacts and a small local article about a restorer bringing old Austin wood back to life. For the first time, when people called, it wasn't as a favor to someone's mother or a handy daughter. It was for me. For my work. The grant came almost as an afterthought. I found a city program offering funds to small businesses that preserved historic architecture and trained new tradespeople and wrote the application at my workbench after hours, outlining a program where I'd take on apprentices, young carpenters who didn't want or couldn't afford college, and teach them how to restore, not just replace. Months later, when the acceptance email landed in my inbox, I read it 3 times. The grant didn't just validate my work, it expanded it. With that money, I bought additional tools, set up a second row of benches, and posted a call for trainees. "No experience necessary," I wrote. "Just a willingness to learn and respect for old things." On the first day of the program, for nervous faces lined up in my workshop. "Welcome to Miller Heritage Restorations," I said, handing out safety goggles. "Rule 1. We don't talk about free labor. You are here to learn a trade that has value. Your time matters. Your work matters. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." As I guided their hands along the grain of a scarred railing, explaining how to feel for hidden nails, I realized I wasn't just building furniture or repairing staircases anymore. I was building something I'd never had in that Denver house, a foundation that rested on mutual respect instead of obligation. A year later, my life looks nothing like that kitchen where I listened to my family plan my eviction. Miller Heritage Restorations is no longer just my name on a lease and a couple of sawhorses. It's a workshop off an Austin street, with benches always in use and a whiteboard full of orders we can't get to fast enough. There's a waiting list for custom mantels and restored staircases. The Harrington Hotel lobby we finished last spring has become my best advertisement. I don't work alone anymore. My trainees from that first grant round are now my core team, and this year we added something I'm proud of, a home repair program for single parents. One Saturday a month, we close the shop to paying clients and drive out to fix dangerous steps, collapsing railings, broken handrails, things that could send a tired mom or dad to the ER with one bad slip. Watching my crew install a new banister in a cramped hallway, I think, this is what my help was always supposed to feel like: chosen, bounded, respected. Jonah found me at the Harrington job, crouched under a staircase. He was photographing the tile for a magazine and kept getting in my light. I told him so. He grinned, moved, then came back later with an apology coffee and 10 questions about mortise and tenon joints. Somewhere between arguing about how to frame a warped handrail and riding shotgun while he chased sunset over old bungalows, he quietly became part of my daily life. He's the first partner who doesn't treat my work as a cute quirk or a free service. When a new inquiry comes in, he's the one who says, "Charge what it's worth, Brooke. Your time isn't charity." Tonight, that time is measured in gold letters on a plaque. I'm standing on a small stage at the city's Heritage Preservation Awards, fingers wrapped around a microphone, while a room full of people claps. The projector behind me shows before and after photos, rotten columns, warped doors, then the same pieces, straightened and glowing. And finally, the announcer says, "For outstanding contribution to the preservation of historic residential architecture, we recognize Miller Heritage Restorations and its founder, Brooke Miller." In the front row, my father is easy to spot. He's in his one good blazer, eyes bright, applauding like his palms don't hurt. When our eyes meet, something in my chest eases. For years I chased that look on my mother's face and never caught it. Now here it is, warm and uncomplicated, from someone who nearly vanished but chose to come back on honest terms. Later, at home, I put the plaque on a shelf I built myself. The house is small, old, and entirely mine. On the living room wall hangs a framed photo, Dad and me standing in front of the first house we ever repaired together, the Denver place, taken the day I loaded my work into Nate's truck. In the photo, I'm dusty and smiling like someone who has finally stepped off a collapsing floor onto solid ground. Some nights, that's enough. The workshop, my crew, Jonah editing photos at the kitchen table, my dad texting me woodworking jokes. My life feels full in a way that doesn't depend on whether my mother thinks I'm a good daughter. Other nights, when the house is quiet and Texas insects buzz outside, my mind drifts back to Denver. To Linda and Amber in that house, patching leaks with contractors who charge triple, avoiding envelopes with Carter's return address. I wonder if they talk about me with anger, regret, or not at all. I wonder if there will ever be a version of the future where we sit across from each other and actually tell the truth about what we did and why. Is there value in trying to rebuild something so warped it nearly crushed me through long, exhausting conversations and boundaries they've never respected? Or is the healthier choice to finally dismantle those ties the way I'd take apart a dangerous staircase? If you were in my place, what would you choose? Please tell your answers in the comments below. And don't forget to hit like and subscribe to help someone else finally pick themselves over toxic loyalty.